also note standing up life jacket boxes that are on top deck or on the bow on either first or second deck. Alright, so I'll just take your first name if you want to step up and then we'll get down. Yes.
Yes.
We're not wearing a mask. Yes, we don't have to worry.
No running. No running.
Vista Star.
Good morning, Lieutenant. Permission to board.
Catil. I bought 2 tickets for Catil. My husband and I.
Thank you.
He's a Navy guy, so we get some little formalities.
Good morning, welcome aboard.
Good morning, sir.
Come on, welcome.
Thank you. When was it commissioned?
Oh, you know what? That I could not tell you.
Does the captain know?
This is the captain.
Oh. Okay.
I'll see if I can find someone.
Thank you.
Good morning, welcome.
Why don't you start by just walking around the ship, going in places. No, this will go in the overview.
Welcome to the Vista Star, everyone. Nice, good view of the Duluth Harbor. There's the aquarium.
Hello. Welcome aboard.
Good morning, sir.
How are you today?
I'm fine, sir. Thank
You
you.
look ready to have yourself a good old time.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
My wife and I, my name's Alvin. I go by Al.
I'm Sean.
My wife is Lori. She's the other counterpart. She'll be taking the pictures. Me, I'll just be taking a video tour of the ship that you have graciously invited us on.
Excellent. We're happy to have you here. This is the Vista Star. She's built in 1987. She's got 2 350 horsepower Detroit diesel engines. Yeah.
1987.
Yep, that's correct. A little older, but not as old as some of the boats out here. The JB Ford, which is currently being scrapped over at Ascon Metals, which I'm going to talk about during the tour, is actually the oldest floating vessel still on the trade books. It is being scrapped. It was a cement carrier. Some cement got stuck in the hull of the ship, and they discovered when they started scrapping it, they got the smokestack and engine room out. You'll be able to see when we go by, and they had to stop, break up the cement, pull it out, and then they're going to begin scrapping it soon. So if you like do that kind of the boat thing, I definitely have you guys get some pictures of the JB Ford.
Okay. Do you know where it was built?
The JB Ford?
This one.
Oh, this one here? We'll be talking more about that during the tour. I don't want to spoil everything.
Fair enough. Are you a native of Duluth?
I was born in Tucson, but I was raised here. So I consider myself a Duluthian, yes.
Okay. Me, I was born in Wisconsin, small town just outside of Manitowoc.
Test.
And I'm currently living in a suburb of Madison. So, been living there since 94 now. So, been there for a while.
How you doing? Good, how are you?
Good, thank you for asking.
I think I'll continue my tour. Thank you for the brief introduction.
If you have any questions, or great views around the boat, left and right side. So we got a board you can wander out there, and top deck's also good.
My wife is probably, I'll probably be joining her up there in a little while. Thanks again.
Enjoy.
There's just something special about a maritime city. And Duluth has certainly been that way for hundreds of years, if not thousands. I'm sure this was an Indian trading post long before the year 1000. So, this has been an important commercial port for a very long time. In case you're wondering, that is considered the bow of the ship, and it's also called the forecastle, the front of the ship. The back of the ship, where the flag is the stern. And if you're looking forward on the ship, port is always to left and starboard is always to right. Pardon me, sir?
Yes, sir.
Will we be going out through the
lift bridge?
the bridge that raises up?
Yes, we will.
We will be?
Yes, we will. We'll be going we'll be passing through the ship canal twice, once to get out onto the lake and then once coming back in.
Anything worthy of note that should catch my attention as far as sights to see in the town?
I will definitely, in town here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have a couple things on the shore. We have the Irvin, we've got the figures. There's a couple things that I'm going to be mentioning during the tour. We have the Great Lakes Aquarium. We have the Anger Tower. There's a lot to see.
I just went there yesterday. And what a beautiful sight that was.
Anger?
Yes.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Got some beautiful Japanese mosaics. Real feel to it. It's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll be mentioning a few things during the tour as far as places you can go and sights to see along the shoreline here and in town.
Okay. Thanks again.
Absolutely.
morning, everyone, and welcome aboard the Vista Star. I am your tour guide, Sean. Together, along with the rest of the Vista Fleet crew, we welcome you and look forward to serving you. Our restroom is located. Whoa!
Downstairs after speech.
No, this is just safety announcements for the beginning of the cruise. Yeah. So our restrooms are located on the stern or back of the first deck on the left and right hand side of the stairs. There's a max capacity of 44 on the top deck. I don't think we have 44 people on board, so we won't be worrying too much about the count. We have the first deck bar open. We have hot dogs, brats, quick snacks, chips, sodas. So if you're feeling a little hungry, feel free to head down there. We also have a full bar. For your safety and comfort, please observe the following rules, as safety has always been one of our #1 priorities. Most of you have already found the white life jacket boxes. They're great for sitting on. Please do not stand on them. When going into the first or second deck, watch your step, as we have raised sills that are good at keeping water out but are also good at tripping feet. Second deck windows cannot be opened. The Coast Guard have deemed it to be unsafe. If you need a breeze, you can go onto first deck or see if there's room on third deck, which, like I said, on this cruise shouldn't be a problem. Smoking is prohibited on the Vista Star. No e-cigarettes and or vapes. It is also against Coast Guard rules to throw anything off the ship, so please refrain from littering. We do have garbages on first, second, and third deck. If at any time you feel like tipping the crew, you may do so on first deck if you feel like we're doing a good job, or if you just need a tip from us on where to go eat, or maybe some sights to see along the shore or in town. We are great at giving tips as well as taking them. I'll be at the gangway at the end of the cruise to answer any other questions you might have. And it looks like we're going to get underway here. It's a beautiful Duluth day, and again, we appreciate for having you aboard the Vista Star. Thank you. We'll now be passing through the Duluth ship now, one of two entries to the harbor. Minnesota Point, the giant sandbar to your right, was once a peninsula. The digging of this canal cut out the rest of the route they can get to that. On beach after the passage of the canal, like the lighthouse appears that mark the superior entry into the natural Duluth Harbor. Feel free to wave at people along the pier as they are among your peer groups. We don't want to peer pressure you into anything on board of Vista Star today, so if you don't feel like waving, feel free to just politely peer back. How the Duluth shipping canal came to be is full of legends. Some say Dredge started digging the canal in 1870, but the city of Superior asked the federal court to stop the canal, forcing ships to keep using its entrance to the harbor. The judge issued an injunction to halt digging and sent an army officer to serve the order. He was warned of the injunction by telegraph on Friday afternoon. The train schedule showed that the officer wasn't going to arrive until Monday morning. City leaders rallied hundreds of volunteers who manned up frantically through the weekend now. Some even say with teaspoons. When the officer arrived, he found a small tugboat had already passed the harbor, in which he found people and that. Except none of that is really true. In the entry involves more lawyers than shovels. There were no heroic feats in Wisconsin after the close of the canal after 7 years and never once stopped dredging. But the legends make more interesting stories.
side to the left, starboard side to the right.
Where the heck did we go? I heard you have some questions
Yes.
About the maintenance that goes on in the winter? and
Yes,
everything?
ma'am.
Yeah, so I was working with Captain Mike. To close down the boat for the winter, we get all the water off the boat, like in our water tanks and everything. We drain
Bilge.
it. Yep,
Ahead
and the
to
bilge and
left is an
everything.
oblique
And then we kind
concrete
of like
structure
pickle the
jutting
boat.
over
So we
the water.
put peanut
That's the
oil in
ruins
the
of the receiving
shaft
dock built
and
in
anything that would use
1919.
normal
There are
oil.
many dramatic theories
And then we
about its
put
original
antifreeze,
use. One story claims that it was
RV
a
and marine
prohibition era
antifreeze
gambling
through all the
house.
lines.
Federal lake charts
So we have
identify
to
the
have like
ruins as
Coke
the
or
Cribs, but it's more
pop
popularly
supplier
known
come
as
on
Uncle Harvey's
and
Mausoleum.
get that all off the
truth
boat and
is
close it
neither
up.
glamorous
And then we
nor
just
grim.
run the
Uncle Harvey's
antifreeze through all the
Harvey
lines in the
Whitney, head of
toilet,
a local
pour it down every
construction
sink,
company.
all of
His
that.
mausoleum
And
was
then
no
we
burial
obviously
site,
will do
but
an
rather
oil
a sand
change
and
if
gravel
it's
hopper.
due.
The hopper held sand from
Same with like the fuel
Apostle
filters.
Islands
We
and
usually
gravel
change
from
them
Grand Bay.
once
The
every
conveyor
couple
belt then
weeks.
carried the sand
We'll
and
change the
gravel
fuel
to shore
filters,
where it was then
and then
loaded
we put
onto
bubblers in the
trucks.
water, one on either
Whitney
side of the
was
bow,
likely
because we have a
banking
bow
on breakwater
thruster.
to expand
Can
the
we
harbor,
sit and
but
talk?
it
Yeah, of
was
course.
built.
Please,
Of course.
let's sit down.
Yeah.
Whitney's operation
Little,
I'm so used to it.
little more stable with the camera.
Yeah,
I don't want to disorient our
Yeah.
watchers.
Yeah, of course.
Yesterday would have been
Of
a good
course.
one.
Yeah. So then we put see, we have a bubbler that's on the back of the boat, and then we have one on like back here around this area, and then one more towards the front, then another one on either side of the bow thruster, and then that's what we do, and then we just do maintenance to make sure that no trash bags get stuck in them, which happens all the time surprisingly, and garbage gets stuck in the little propellers in there. So then we have to pull that out of the water, take it out, put it back in, and replace any props if needed.
Now, you mentioned the term bubbler, which
Yes. You don't know what a
that's-
bubbler is?
That isn't exactly what I may be familiar with the story behind it, but
Yeah.
but most people think a bubbler is a water fountain that you
Yes.
find in a school.
Yes. So a bubbler is just a little motor with two propellers on it and a cage around it. It's just a small boat propeller basically that we put in the water, hang it from chains, and then it just stays in the water and kind of percolates the water so ice doesn't build up. Yeah,
This is not considered an icebreaker.
it is not. Where our hull is able to withstand some ice, but we do not have an ice-plated bow or a draft that's deep enough to be able to do ice breaking.
Do you know if Duluth has such a ship?
We do. We have a lot of them actually. Later in the cruise, you're going to see the Great Lakes Towing Company. They have 3 tugboats that are able to do ice breaking, along with the U.S. Coast Guard ship Alder.
I would like
It's
to
another
Which we saw yesterday.
Yep, that's going to be
year marriage
later in the cruise
anniversary.
also that you'll see that, and that is our main icebreaker for the harbor.
Congratulations, guys.
That'll open up the shipping canal. And then we have
So the
another
northwest of Lake
tugboat
Superior
company,
wasn't
Heritage
always a
Marine,
welcoming part
that have
of Duluth.
2
Like today, it
tugboats
was
that
a
are
hard-working
icebreaker
industrial
capable.
area and
But
not
the
a
Helen
town
H,
ship stuff.
she's the main
There were
icebreaker
docks,
for that
railway
company,
lines,
and her
huge
hull
grain
is
elevated
very
bay.
thickly
That was
ice
near the
plated
mid to late
and is able to ram through like 3 feet
However,
of ice
because of
very
financial
easily.
panic,
And-
Do you know if there were such events that required ice breaking over this past winter? I realized that it was quite warm, and I don't know
We
what
still
the
did.
I don't know what kind of how thick was the ice that needed to be broken.
It was, I don't know the exact thickness, but I think it was 2 to 3 feet, kind of an average in our harbor. On the lake is a totally different story. That really didn't get much ice at all. But in the harbor, since it's so protected and relatively shallow, it's only about 30 feet deep, we do form quite a bit of ice, especially on the other side of the Blotnick Bridge, where it's a lot more protected there, and it doesn't get as much of the current from the lake.
Okay.
So yes, the alder starts coming out end of February, beginning of March, to start opening up the shipping lanes, kind of getting the big bulk of how wide our freighters are to get in and out of the harbor. And then Heritage
It may
Marine
not
comes
look like
in
it,
and
but
then kind of
Interstate
keeps it
35
open
runs
every
right
couple
along the
days, and
shoreline
then
ahead of us. It was
lead
first planned as a
freighters
four-story
out
tall overhead
by
freeway, which
taking,
would have blocked Duluth
just
from its
driving in
lakeshore
front
and
of them to
been
open up
multiple
any
degrees
ice
spread
so they don't
from waves
damage their
kicked up
hulls
by
at all.
winter storms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Duluth citizens
Do you
demanded
know
better design, so
when,
engineers
what
routed
dates
I-35
the
through a
port
series of
was
tunnels
actually
that
closed
protected
because there was no
overhead
more
and
shipping going on?
So normally the
Construction
shipping
began in
closes
1982 and
January
lasted 12 years.
15th to the
project
20th.
won awards
We don't
worldwide
have
and
any
was a
more
key
freighters
part
that
of
come
Duluth's
in.
waterfront
I think the last
revitalization.
freighter that came in was on the
outside of
20th
first
of
freeway tunnel,
January
we
this
find a
year.
large blue,
I don't know
white, and gray
exactly,
mural.
but
This
then we
mural
have
made up of over
last
1
winter we
million
had the
1
Pollard
inch square tiles, and it
Chigurtha,
is
the
a
Lee
visual timeline of
Chigurtha,
shipping
the
here in
Honorable
ports.
James
The mural
Overstar,
reads from
and
left to right, from the left
I
portion
think the
depicting
American
the oldest
Integrity
history of the Twin
that
Ports,
did their winter
harbor,
layup
and
up in
the
our
right
harbor.
side depicting the present day.
And that was
Created
all on
under
the
direction
Wisconsin
of local
side.
artist Mark
So
Grant.
they all came in that beginning of January to kind of take a nap for 2 months. Before
You mean
started
they
heading.
stayed in the Superior side of the harbor?
Yep. So 2 of the ships stayed at Fraser shipyards. One of them was at Midwest Energy, and the other one was on more of the Superior side, closer to the Superior entry, where they stayed for the winter.
The White Dome on shore.
Do you
is the
know if this
Northland
ship
Vietnam
is
Veterans
allowed
Memorial.
to
The dome
transport
features the emblems
items
of 5
that are going
branches
to be
of our
used
armed
elsewhere?
services. Behind it stands a
No,
wall
our
engraved
vessel
with
is
the
only
names
rated
of
to go
18
1 nautical
36
mile
men
from the
from
piers
this area
or
who
away
did
from
not
our
return
home
from
port.
the war.
So
The memorial
as
was
far as we
dedicated
go
on
today,
Memorial
that's
Day
pretty much as far as
1992 and
our
was funded totally
ship
by
is able to
private
go.
donations. It was also designed by
So if
local
I were
veterans
to
by
ask,
Daniel Lee
or if I were to ask for a private charter to say, go to Mackinac Island, you
We
wouldn't be able to?
No, we aren't able to take passengers.
You have a
The large
limited
building with the
charter.
red water
Yes.
tower and tall
So
smokestack
the
is
limited
Duluth
is
Victor's
only a
Brewery.
mile away
Built
from the
in
piers.
1881,
Yeah.
it brewed Victor's famous beer for almost a
Okay,
century.
so you're basically
Except
stuck
during
with Lake
Prohibition, when
Superior
it bought
then.
soft drinks and
Yes.
candy bars
But can you
and
go
business.
throughout
Or
the
at least
breadth
that's
of
what
all
the government
of Superior?
We
Victor's
cannot.
closed in 1972
No, we have to stay within
make
1
way
mile
for
of
the
our
freeway,
port.
but the fort was torn down, the interstate was
Yeah.
rerouted through
1 mile of Duluth?
Yes. So the cruises that we do is the Grand Sightseeing Tour, the Duluth Waterfront Tour. We do sunset dinner cruises, bluegrass and barbecue and all of that. And all of that is almost, we only spend only about 30 minutes on the lake. We'll do, which is the loop that we're going to do today, which is 30 minutes, and then that's it. You aren't really able to do much else. For the sunset dinner cruises, we do what's going around the Horn. We'll go out the Superior entry and then stay about a mile off the shore going along Minnesota Point and go back into Lake Superior and go back into the harbor under the Ariel Lick Bridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, because of my scuba background, I have to ask this question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm told that Superior is the most populous lake that has a lot of shipwrecks, more than any other lake. Are there any worthy of note that a scuba diver such as myself would be able to get to? Now, mind you, I'm only qualified to go down to approximately 120 feet, but there are others that may be able to do alternative mixes for their deep dives.
I would recommend right around our harbor, which are really the only ones I know, is the Thomas Wilson and George Hadley. This happened in like 1902, 1905, and it was just about a mile from the piers. And that's about 75 to 100 feet of water that it went down in. And I think it was the George Hadley that's still under the water that he couldn't see.
Is it possible to charter this boat in order for me to get an instructor and myself to go to that wreck in order
Most
to get
likely
certified?
not. Most likely not.
It's within a mile.
Yes, but most likely not, just because I don't think we can allow anyone to go off of the boat. Yes, I do have my general manager's card. She does all of our events, and she would know more about this. I'm just the fleet manager, so I don't know as much about the booking events, event coordinating side of it. So that would be a good question for her.
Chances are very likely that even if I were financially independent, shall we say, this would still, even just doing a shipwreck dive would probably be pretty cost prohibitive for me.
I'm not entirely sure what our prices are. It depends on the day of the week, the time you want, because depending on the time we'll have to cancel our public cruises or dinner cruises, so then that makes the cost go up. But that's all the information that she knows, and she can send you a whole package of what we can do if we are even able to let you go off the boat in that sense. But this is her card. You can call or email her.
It grows thousands of
Yeah, you
roses
can call her,
tended by
email
volunteers
her.
and has a
She
gazebo
most
that
likely
serves
will
as a
not be
summer
able to meet
wedding
with you
chapel.
today, but you can leave her a message and set up a time for a meeting.
Great, thank you for your help.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I think that'll do it. If
All
I
right.
think of, what's your name again?
Hannah, I'm the fleet manager.
Thank you, Hannah.
Oh, of course.
Pleasure being on your cruise, and I
Awesome.
hope to do it again soon.
Awesome. I was glad that I had time to sit down with you. It's kind of a slow day, so normally I'm not able to spend a lot of time to sit and talk, but
Do you know how long the captain has been commissioned for this vessel?
the captain,
Yes.
I'm not sure when he started as a captain. It has been around 10 years, I think, but he has worked with us since 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Yeah, of course.
We are now turning toward the open waters of Lake Superior, the world's largest freshwater lake by surface area. If you climb Duluth's tallest hill on a clear day, you can see 35 miles over the lake, but you'd only be looking at 1.5% of its surface area. And because Lake Superior has a maximum depth of 1,332 feet, you could stand New York City's Empire State Building up from the bottom, and the top floor of that skyscraper would be 8 stories underwater. Lake Superior is also the world's third largest freshwater lake by volume. Only Lake Baikal in Russia and Lake Tanganyika in Africa have greater volume. Lake Superior holds 10% of the Earth's surface water, as I said before. That's about 3 quadrillion gallons. That's 3 followed by 15 zeros.
You knew my question before I asked it. Thank you.
Lake Superior has an average surface temperature of a bone-chilling 39 degrees Fahrenheit. Only shallow water and surf areas further into the lake are warmer during the summer. Those same spots are usually the only areas that freeze over during the winter. The lake is so large and deep that there's always relatively warmer water welling up from below, keeping most of it open in all but the longest, coldest winters. In the rare winters when the lake develops a lot of ice, it can cause major headaches for our shipping industry. During the spring of 1972, weeks of easterly winds jammed a massive amount of ice against the Duluth shoreline. This end of the lake is shaped like a big funnel, so the wind-driven ice had no choice but to pile up on itself like cubes in a glass of water. This created a 30-foot thick field of ice chunks the size of minivans that stretched for miles. Ships needed icebreakers to get through until the middle of June, and the ice was finally gone just in time for the 4th of July. Lake Superior is not only the largest, coldest, cleanest, and deepest of the Great Lakes, it's also the most feared. Over 350 shipwrecks lie on the bottom of the lake. While some were the result of human error, most were simply overcome by fierce weather. Fall is usually the stormiest season, and November the most violent month. The strongest winds clocked on Lake Superior topped 100 miles an hour, well over hurricane strength. In 1998, the largest wave was officially recorded, a 43-foot monster encountered by the iron ore carrier Roger Blau. Of course, when we think Lake Superior shipwrecks, the 1975 wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald comes to mind. It was memorialed in Gordon Lightfoot's song of the same name. The Fitz started her journey that November day right here in our own Superior Bay loading ore. She took all 29 crew members down with her and was later discovered broken in half under 500 feet of water, 17 miles from Whitefish Bay on the far eastern end of the lake. There is a lesser-known wreck that happened with great drama right here, just outside the channel. In 1905, a great squall called the Thanksgiving Storm produced hurricane-force winds, and totally the storm took 33 souls, 9 of them just outside Duluth Ship Canal. The Mataafa, hauling a load of iron, steamed hard for the canal, but as she entered the canal, currents and wind gusts forced the ship into the North Pier. Conditions then carried it back into the lake, slamming her against the pier ahead. About 150 yards from shore, the Mataafa settled to the lake bottom and split in two. That night, thousands of Duluthians lined the shore around bonfires, unable to launch lifeboats as the storm pounded the wounded ship. In the wee hours of the morning, the flickering light in the pilot house went dead. When the savers finally reached the ship the next morning, they found 15 sailors, including the ship's captain, alive. Unfortunately, 9 of the crew either drowned or froze to death. Smelt has been so pervasive that Duluth celebrates a smelt parade with a giant smelt queen puppet who calls the summer sun back to the city. Since 2006, all foreign ships entering the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Seaway system have been required to exchange all ballast water at sea. Ahead of us are the lighthouses of the Duluth entry. To our left, to our right or starboard side, the North Pier features a red flashing light. The red roof building to our left features a steady green light. It also houses our harbor's foghorn. The lighthouse further up the South Pier next to the bridge features a revolving white light. The U.S. Coast Guard operates and maintains all three lights. This might sound like a lot of work, but the Coast Guard tells us it only amounts to a bit of light housekeeping. Got to enjoy the punishment. When a ship is heading for the Duluth entry, the crew lines their vessel up with the two lights on the South Pier. To ensure they are on the proper heading for the canal, when the ship gets closer, they split the distance between the green and red lights to safely pass through. Although mariners today still use the lights on the piers to guide their approach, the Coast Guard has deemed that radar and electronic navigation equipment have made the inner South Pier lighthouse essentially obsolete. In fact, while it is currently operational and the light is still maintained by the U.S. Coast Guard, the lighthouse itself was sold to a private party a few years ago. The first piers at the Duluth entry were built in 1886 from timber using the labor of Duluth's newest immigrants, the Finns. In fact, the Canal Park area housed these arrivals and later was called Finntown. One of the streets was known as Ratakatu, or Rat Street, due to the large number of vermin who lived by the outhouses. But the Finns also built a church, school, community bathhouse, and boarding houses. Finntown became home to other minority groups and hosted many sailors as well. Canal Park's main attraction is the Ship Canal and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Marine Museum. The Lake Superior Maritime Visitor Center is ahead of us on the right. They even have their own Army Corps tugboat, the Bayfield, which was put on display outside the front doors in 1998. The museum's best feature may be its price. It's completely free of charge. Across the street from the museum is the Palucci Building. If you've ever eaten Chungking Chinese food or a Michelina's pizza, it was likely developed right there. Now one of the most popular tenants of the historic building is Vickers Distillery, where they turn Lake Superior water and local grains into gin, vodka, and whiskey. They also have free tours daily at 5:30 p.m. Duluth's most famous landmark, the aerial lift bridge, which just may be the most photographed bridge in all the Midwest, is located just ahead in the mainland of Duluth. To the left is Park Point, a narrow 7-mile strip of land once attached to the rest of Duluth where the Ship Canal is today. The aerial bridge was built in 1905 and then converted into its current form in 1929. It can be raised to its full 138-foot clearance in 3 minutes. The span only goes up that high for large ships, but the bridge lifts for anything taller than 14 feet. As the bridge raises, you can see how it works. Each tower holds a big block of concrete that moves in the opposite direction of the lifting span. The calibration is so exact that whenever the bridge is repainted, weight is added to the concrete blocks to offset the weight of the new paint on the lifting road span. It makes about 4,500 lifts per year, much of that during the busy summer months. Up to 3,000 vehicles cross the bridge on a summer day, when bridged drivers will often come down to the channel to wave at passing ships. Some fun facts about the local lingo: the canal parkers like to call it getting bridged when on their way to work. It makes a great excuse for being late. Even if you don't live in Canal Park, you can still use it if your boss doesn't know where you live. There are 2 bridge tenders on duty 24 hours a day during the shipping season from mid-March to mid-January, and during those months they will raise that bridge some 4,500 times. Don't feel too bad for them though, there's a big comfy recliner up there, the pilot house. It was originally built in 1905 as a transfer ferry bridge. It carried a gondola across with people, wagons, and vehicles. However, transportation was slow and they had to construct the lift bridge you see today. The captain will signal salute the bridge with 3 loud blasts of our horn, 1 long and 2 short, so those of you in front of the pilot house may wish to cover your ears and those of small children. The bridge responds back with its 2 Westinghouse Railroad air brake horns to respond with the same salute. It's a sign of respect, kind of like a nautical high five between vessels. To avoid the cost of tearing the old bridge down, they built new towers inside the old ones to support the 386-foot lifting road span. The new bridge opened in the spring of 1929.
They're done touring now.
Canal Park's main attraction is the ship canal on the U.S. Army. Wait, I already covered that part. I'm just going to talk about that blue bridge over there. The main link between Canal Park and the bayfront area. The bridge marks the Minnesota Slip, which is the home of the charter fishing boats and a historic vessel open for tours, the ore carrier William A. Irvin. That's the large ship you see just beyond the blue bridge, which is currently lifted. The large oval tan structure ahead of you is the Duluth Entertainment and Convention Center, known as the Deck. It is home to our national football champions, the UMD Bulldogs, or hockey and football. Next to the deck is the Great Lakes Aquarium and Lake Superior Center. It opened in 2000 as the only all-freshwater aquarium in North America. Its main exhibits are large freshwater tanks that recreate Lake Superior habitats and feature many kinds of lake creatures, from ancient sturgeon to playful river otters. They also have tanks where you can go in and actually touch some fish. It's pretty cool. You see scuba divers sometimes feeding them in the aquariums. They also have a couple otters that are very, very cool. I think you ought to go see them if you get the chance.
You did hear that, right? Otter. You otter. See
The
them.
aquarium's 3 colors paint scheme is symbolic. The blue represents Lake Superior, the green represents the lake's natural surroundings, and the red represents ore deposits around the lake and the industry that was built on them. The bandstand pavilion marks Bayfront Festival Park, where concerts and other outdoor events are held year-round. The park's biggest draws are Duluth's 4th of July celebration, which feature Minnesota's largest fireworks display, and the Bayfront Blues Fest, which attracts world-class musicians and thousands of blues fans every August. During the winter, the park features the Bentleyville Tour of Lights, with nearly 3 million holiday lights illuminating Bayfront Festival Park. Concrete silos next to Bayfront Park mark the site of Duluth's newest waterfront resort, Pier B. These 80-foot tall silos, built in 1914, once stored powdered cement. The black ship you see there is the Sundew. It is one of the 180-foot Coast Guard cutters made back from 1960. It was the second to last built and the second to last to be decommissioned. She was launched at Duluth in August 1944 and returned to be stationed here in 1980. She was retired in 2004 and donated to the Duluth Convention Center as a museum ship. However, the Sundew did not draw enough visitors to earn her keep, so she was sold by sealed bid to a private party in 2009. On the end of that pier, you can see a small, white, rusty structure. This is the pilot house of the Urban L Climber, the last of dozens of old lake steamers that were scrapped in Duluth from the mid-1970s through the 1990s. The owner of this dock bought the pilot house from the scrapyard and had it installed here. The dark brown building at the end of the long slip to our right is General Mills A. That's the Minnesota-based company that makes cereal like Cheerios, Lucky Charms, and Golden Grams. But word is the facility is for sale. Seriously, these 3 elevators represent the important grain trade of this region. It was Jay Cook, he has a state park named after him just south of Duluth, who financed Duluth's first grain elevator. By 1880, the Duluth Board of Trade was organized to set and regulate grain sales. One of the founders was George Barnum, cousin of the infamous P.T. Barnum. Riverland Ag is one of North America's most modern grain terminals. The next 2 tan and yellow elevators belong to Riverland Corp. Locally, the facility is known as Duluth Storage. The elevators load ships using the 2 gray and blue ship loaders you can see mounted along the slip. 5 miles of automated conveyor belts connect the 2 grain elevators with the truck loading train, then the ship. They can fill the largest grain ships on the Great Lakes in a speedy 14 hours. The next pier is owned by Northland Constructors. They store and process construction materials here, including sand, gravel, stone, and demolition rubble. They also do lots of other things you never have to think about, like recycle asphalt. Duluth Lakeport shares a pier with one of the loveliest sites in the harbor, Ascon Metals. Okay, in actuality, Ascon is more like a neighbor with a lot of broken cars on their front lawn. These days they focus on railroad cars, structural steel, and industrial equipment, and send the scrap metal to steel mills for recycling. You'll see the old J.B. Ford in the slip today, which is currently the oldest floating vessel on Lake Superior. It is awaiting its turn to be scrapped. They had to halt the scrapping process because they found cement that had hardened in her hull. So before they can continue scrapping the J.B. Ford, they have to remove the cement. That is the long white boat you see on our port side, which is the right side.
There, behind the cranes. That ship is due to be recycled, but they found cement in its hull.
Now, don't quote me on the pronunciation of this next ship, but docked ahead of us on the right is the Marsgracht. She is sailing for the Netherlands. She weighs about 9,524 tons and was built in China in 2011. You're looking at the old J.B. Ford to the right, you'll notice that a large chunk of the hull is missing on the back. That is where the smokestacks and engine room were located.
Marsgracht. Marsgracht. There is an S in there. Marsgracht.
Husky Superior Fuel Terminal is a gas station for ships. Husky can store 560,000 gallons of fuel and can pump 50 to 80,000 gallons of fuel into a ship in under 2 hours. That is 9 gallons per second. On average, ships burn 25 to 40 gallons of fuel per mile traveled. That sounds like horrible fuel efficiency until you think about how much cargo a ship actually carries. If you factor that in, you'll find that ships are about 6 times more fuel efficient than trains and 60 times more fuel efficient than semi-trucks, which means moving cargo by water is much cheaper than moving it over land. That's why you'll see ships travel thousands of miles inland to the Twin Ports instead of transferring the cargo to and from trucks, trains at coastal ports. Since ships burn less fuel than trucks and trains, they create less air pollution. Moving cargo by water also reduces congestion and wear on highway and railway systems, and is generally much safer to the public. You might want to get your cameras out, as it's hard to beat the charm of tugboats. These are the hard-working tugboats of the Great Lakes Towing Company. Each is named after a U.S. state. We currently have the North Carolina, Kentucky, and Arkansas. Each of these G-class tugs have 12 to 13 feet of hole under the water. Their low center of gravity and their 1,250 horsepower engines give them the leverage they need to push and pull the largest ships on the Great Lakes. The tugs are very deceiving in size. The largest, the North Carolina, is the same length and width as the Vista Star. Lake freighters and even some ocean-going ships are maneuverable these days, and they don't really need help coming and going from our harbor. However, it's still a lucrative industry, given tugboats like these charge about $1,500 per tug per tow. The tugboats are usually used in pairs, one at the ship's bow and one at the stern. Today, the tugs are used mainly to assist larger, less maneuverable ocean-going ships. The tugs still come in handy for all ships in case of high winds or mechanical problems. During the early winter and spring breakup, they do valuable ice-breaking work, escorting ships to their loading berths and back to open water. Great Lakes Towing was founded in 1899 by some of the most prominent businessmen of the time, including John D. Rockefeller, James Sinclair, and Henry Steinbrenner. It has operated in the Twin Ports since the 1900s. In addition to the 35 tugs they operate on the Great Lakes, Great Lakes Towing also operates tugs in Hawaii, Florida, and Puerto Rico. To the right are the remains of the old Interstate Bridge. Before it was built between Duluth and Superior in the late 1890s, the only way to get between the two cities was by ferry. Of course, ice often prevented the ferry from crossings in the winter. In 1894, the Duluth Superior Bridge Company was incorporated, but bickering between the two cities delayed construction for months. When the bridge opened in April of 1897, the first person to make the journey across the bridge found that the Superior side wasn't completed and was forced to turn around. In fact, the bridge wasn't officially completed until July of that year. Beyond that is the John A. Bugden Bridge, named in honor of the Minnesota congressman who was instrumental in money from Congress for the project. Known locally as the High Bridge, it opened in 1961 and is an 8,000-foot long 4-lane freeway between Duluth and Superior. The bridge has a ship's clearance of 123 feet, and the top of the center span rises 200 feet above the water. Far up ahead and high atop the hill, you can see a 6-story stone tower standing out against the sky. That's Anger Tower, built in memory of Bert Anger, the Norwegian native and Duluth businessman who operated a furniture store. Anger had donated money for the city to buy the land to create a park. After his death, he willed an additional $50,000, which was used for the tower. In 1939, a crowd of 5,000 gathered to watch the Crown Prince Olaf and Princess Martha of Norway dedicate the tower. Norwegian royalty returns every few years to rededicate Anger. The tower offers a spectacular panoramic view of the Twin Ports, the harbor, and the lake. In fact, it's often said that the view from Anger Tower is superior. You've probably noticed that our harbor's water has a yellowish-brown tint to it. Many people assume that it is caused by pollution or by iron ore in the water. Actually, this discoloration has a much different natural cause. The St. Louis River originates in a number of bogs and swamps across northern Minnesota. When vegetation decays in these waterways, it gives off a substance called tannin, which stains the water in the same way that a tea bag discolors a cup of hot water. In fact, many of you have consumed tannin since it's present in tea, coffee, apple juice and cider, red wine, many liquors, and dark beers, and some fruits and nuts. Our harbor is much cleaner than it was 30 or 40 years ago, before environmental regulations began cutting the pollution that many industries were releasing into the water. Since the 1970s, the water quality in the harbor has improved dramatically. During the tour, we often refer to our harbor as the Twin Ports, or Duluth and Superior combined. Since the two cities and two states here share one natural harbor, the federal government merged operations into one port in 1896. That allowed Duluth and Superior to work together to maximize business, which has worked quite well. For the first half of the 20th century, the Twin Ports were the second busiest port in the U.S., behind in tonnage only to New York City. These days we handle about 40 million metric tons each 10-month shipping season, from mid-March to mid-January. That total makes us the busiest port on the entire Great Lakes Seaway system, beating out Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, Toronto, and Montreal. Despite our 10-month shipping season, we usually rank around the 15th busiest port in the U.S., finishing well ahead of Boston, Baltimore, Seattle, and San Francisco, which operate year-round. Most of the tonnage we handle consists of bulk cargoes, coal taconite pellets, and grain. In that order are the Twin Ports' top commodities. We also handle limestone, cement, salt, clay, fertilizer, and various other minerals, as well as general cargo like steel, lumber, pulpwood, and machinery. The amount of cargo the Twin Ports handles is hard to comprehend, but I can give you a good idea. If you are familiar with what was the old Metrodome in downtown Minneapolis, where the Vikings used to play their home games, our 40 million tons of cargo each year is enough to fill the has-been Metrodome more than 22 times. Looking directly ahead of us now, you can see the beautiful scenic city of Duluth, Minnesota. Along the site of Native American summer camps, the first European fur trading posts were established here in the 1790s, and the village of Duluth was founded in 1854. The first railroad arrived in 1871. The same year the Duluth Ship Canal was dug, and activity here quickly grew with lumber and grain going east and settlers going west. Duluth boomed in the 1890s with the discovery of iron ore to the north. During the early 1900s, Duluth was the headquarters of the world's largest lumber market, and for the first half of the 20th century, it was the busiest iron ore port in the world. Today, Duluth is a major transportation hub and tourist destination for the upper Midwest. It's a very long and narrow city, extending about 24 miles along the St. Louis River and Lake Superior, but in most places it is only 2 miles wide. Nestled between the water and the hills, which rise about 800 feet, only a mile or two from shore, that big difference in elevation combined with the moderating effect of Lake Superior's 40-degree water give Duluth some unique weather conditions. In the summer, it's not unheard of for the temperature by the lake to be 10, 20, or even 30 degrees cooler than the temperature a few miles inland. In the winter, the lake has the opposite effect, keeping temperatures here a few degrees warmer than over the hill. Winters here don't always cooperate with the shipping schedule, and ships often need icebreaker assistance at the beginning and end of the season. The job belongs to the U.S. Coast Guard, whose station is just ahead, marked by the 10 buildings with the white boathouse door. Next to the Coast Guard station are the Lakehead Boat Basin and Harbor Cove Marina, two of the Twin Ports' many marinas. This is where we keep the Vista Queen during the winter. The Vista Star has a thick steel hull, so it stays at its home dock and can handle any ice that develops. The Vista Queen is small enough to be easily lifted out of the water, so she spends winters up on the dock. All the pleasure craft you see must be pulled out for the winter, or the pressure of the harbor ice could damage their more fragile hulls. Once construction was completed at Lakehead Boat Basin in 2017, both marinas now boast hotel complexes on site. With the aerial lift bridge back on our right, this means that sadly our cruise is coming to an end. If you enjoyed the cruise, feel free to leave us a review on TripAdvisor or Facebook. Again, my name is Sean. Don't forget to check out our Facebook or Instagram pages, as we have new and exciting things happening with plenty of deals. And don't forget to tag us in your beautiful pictures of the Twin Ports. As we are docking, there will be a lot of activity going on in the back of first deck. We will now clear that area and ask that you keep the stairwells open until you hear the all ashore from the captain. Again, as we are docking, there will be a lot of activity going on the back of first deck. We will now clear that area and ask that you keep the stairwells open until you hear the all ashore from the captain. I will be at the end of the gangway answering any questions you have. Once again, thank you for joining us today aboard the Vista Star, and have a wonderful rest of your day in the beautiful scenic city of Duluth.
That guy.
I know. Have a good day.
Thank you, Captain.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate the fine tour that you're doing.
Fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Glad you came with us today.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We want to make sure
You wanna
everyone
just come
knows
this
how
way?
good this charter really is.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Hope you got a lot of good footage today, my man. It was good having you aboard.
Absolutely. From all of the crew. It's going to be busy while we're up here.
It's a beautiful day, so do enjoy it. Excellent. Hopefully we'll see you again sometime.
Oh, we will.
Thank you very much, guys. We appreciate having you on board.